Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition, a game day edition of Birds 365, joined now by Game Day Ed Kracz from SI.com. Ed, welcome to the show, man. Great to see you on this Football Friday. We made it, Ed. The season is here.
For all the talking we did about it, it feels like it snuck up. It really did. I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's a Friday,
Brazil, I think.
Yeah, but happy Game Day Friday to everybody. This is it. It's no more dress rehearsals. This is the real deal.
Friday Night Lights, baby.
Friday Night Lights.
Selling that. He's doing this job down in South America, trying to sell the game to an international audience. But boy, I got to tell you, how many days, Zander, since the
34,
234 since the Eagles lost to Tampa Bay, Ed.
Wow.
And last night, we got to see Kansas City and Baltimore. Typical NFL, in my estimation. A great ending, and everybody forgets about the crap that got you to that ending. Boy, these illegal formation penalties, that's something you got to keep an eye on tonight. What is the NFL doing? What they have 230 days, whatever, and this is what they're worried about?
Yeah, pretty ticky-tacky. And, hey, we saw an offensive pass interference, I think, or two. The Eagles kind of, they were called for a few of those last year with those rub routes. We saw, I think, the Ravens get flagged for one or two of those. But you're right. I mean, listen, unless it's like an egregious penalty, I mean, that roughing the passer penalty on Patrick Mahomes, the hit to the head, that's legitimate. But, some of those other ones, you're right. I mean, come on, just first game. There's going to be some technical errors probably. So, what's wrong with letting, an official look the other way?
Let the players play. Let the players play. That's what everybody's tuning in for. Not to see Ronald Torbert or whatever his name is tonight, but Ron Torbert. But anyway, that was my and the Eagles, let's be honest. I mean, Lane and Jordan will stretch the envelope, so to speak, when it comes to lining up, and they seem to be focused on that. So that's something to keep an eye on before the kickoff. And speaking of the dynamic kickoff, Ed Kracz, bunch of touchbacks. Everybody got to the regular season. They're like, you know what? 5 yards ain't that big of a deal. Let's just kick it out of the end zone.
Yeah, I was surprised at that. I thought we would see a little more pop fly action from the kicker and let them see where they can take the ball back to. But I think it's strategic too. I was watching them thinking, listen, if you're the Chiefs and you're up 10, why not just kick it into the end zone? Let them start at the 30. Don't let them turn the game around with a long kickoff or start midfield, near midfield or something like that. So I think a lot of this will be strategic too. If you have a decent sized lead, say a double-digit lead, you'll probably see it kicked into the end zone more often than not. But yeah, and you know what? I don't like it. The more I watched it last night, I don't like how everything's just at a standstill until someone touches the ball after it's kicked. I like guys flying down the field, looking.
Well, you don't care about people's safety, Ed.
Hey, I did that kickoff coverage duty back in my day, man, and it's just
we all did. Yeah,
kamikaze. Just fly down there and knock somebody on their butt and look for the ball. And I kind of missed that. I didn't think I would, but after watching last night, I wish they would.
Oh, I missed the actual kickoff. That was one of the most exciting plays in football. I mean, it was, and but they legislated it out of the game, and that's what the NFL does. They over-legislate the game. But let's get to the actual game, because there will be plays that decide the winner between the Eagles and Packers. And what are you most excited to see? Offense, defense, Kellen Moore, weapons, Saquon show, Big Fangio, his difference, what he means. What is the first thing you want to see with this particular team?
Well, that's a tough question. I'm looking forward to seeing it all, to be honest. I want to see how this offense operates. I want to see Jalen Hurts, operate within this offense. A.J. Brown, Devontae. I mean, listen, I want to see all of it. I really do. And then on defense, it's a young defense. I think it's a good opener for this young defensive line. They're going against a young offensive line for the Packers. They've spent a lot of high draft picks on that side of the ball, the offensive line for the Packers. And it's a young defense. With Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, I'm looking forward to seeing those guys. I want to see Bryce Huff. I want to see Quinion Mitchell. I guess if you ask me one thing, it'd probably be Quinion Mitchell. The first round rookie pick. How is he going to assimilate in his first NFL football game? He's going to play a lot. We saw Isaiah Rodgers get ruled out with a hand injury.
Yeah.
So I think Mitchell's going to start on the outside now in his first pro game.
Leave him there, Ed. That's my advocation.
Yeah.
Don't move him. Leave him.
That's what Fangio would like to do. He would like to leave him in one spot, and maybe this is the start of that. But I guess if you ask me the one thing I'm looking forward to most, it's probably this defense, and in particular on this defense, it's going to be Quinion Mitchell because he's the first-round pick, and it's not very often you see a first-round pick for the Eagles start. We saw it with Devontae Smith, obviously, a few years ago. I think he caught the first touchdown pass in that game in Atlanta as a rookie. But a lot of times you don't see these first round picks have too big of an impact for the Eagles, and we'll see what Quinion Mitchell can do. I guess that's probably what I'm looking forward to most.
Yeah, how much does Isaiah Rodgers being out change this for you, Ed? For Vic Fangio, I said to John yesterday, we talked about it yesterday. I think Keely Ringo's a better matchup with these Green Bay receivers, but Isaiah has been the guy who's gotten most of the first team reps. How much does this change the game plan for Vic coming into the game?
Yeah, I wondered how much time Rodgers was going to see anyway, because this is a big physical group of receivers for the Green Bay Packers, and I got to tell you, I saw when Devontae Smith had his All-Star softball game up in the Lehigh Valley in June. I talked to Isaiah at length, but it didn't strike me then how small this guy is until I saw him in the locker room.
Small, man.
He is a little guy. He's short. He's thin. And you would think that bigger receivers would give him trouble. Now, he spent the summer going against A.J. Brown a lot of the time, big physical receiver, and he did okay. But I was concerned just based on his size going into this. So I don't know how much he would have played anyway. Now, Quinion's Quinion's a pretty thin guy too, but he looks very athletic. He's a little taller, and maybe he's more physical. He was known as a pretty good tackler at Toledo. So I don't think it might change things for the better, in my opinion. If you were planning on starting Isaiah Rodgers against some of these big guys like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, I think it would have been a mismatch for the Packers. I think they might have tried to exploit that. So, we'll see. It's a shame he got ruled out with the hand injury. He was telling us in the locker room all week that he was going to play, and then, it comes down to it, and he's not playing. So I don't think it changes much. Maybe changes things slightly for the better because I think Quinion is better. And let's get this rookie season started.
Yeah, when you talk about the injury, there's no question that Isaiah was dealing with something because after the initial cut to 53, he missed practice for 2 consecutive days. That sort of like in between period. And then they started the goopy schedule because of Labor Day and the early game. And they had the 3 practices where he was back, but he was limited. And you remember the one day where we can't report the dynamic kickoff because of the strategy implications of the touchback. He was not on the kick return team. I can say that now because he's ruled out, which was a first. It was typically him and Kenny Gainwell, and they took him off of that. I can't tell you who they put on it, but they took him off of that, and evidently that's because of the hand injury. Now, from that standpoint, Devin White was a bit more of a surprise coming out of left field with the ankle injury, and then not even traveling to Brazil. Remember, they took Isaiah to Brazil, and Kobe being the starter. And Kobe won the job and is the starting middle linebacker. Doesn't mean he is forever. If he plays poorly, it'll be opened up. You think there's something more to this Devin White stuff about not going to Brazil?
Yeah, there could be. Sirianni at his press conference there in Brazil yesterday was asked, and he was very dodgy with the answer. He didn't give much at all as to what happened. So there could be something more to it. I mean, remember, this guy was supposed to be one of the leaders of the defense. He was in the text chain with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts because
the accountability chain. Did they drop him from the chain?
I don't know.
Devin White has been removed from the group chat, everybody.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I listen, I was surprised. Okay, all right, he's not going to play, fine, but then to leave him at home. Now, listen, I think when you fly, obviously you're at 36,000 feet for 10 hours, whatever that flight is. And, you know, your ankles and your feet have a tendency to swell, right? So maybe they were concerned that, hey, if we bring him on a plane, that ankle is not going to get any better. It's just going to keep, you know, being swollen, and it might get worse. So maybe from that standpoint, that's why they left him home. But it just seems like a real slap not to bring the guy that, you know, they were using as a starter at the Mike position most of the summer, to not even bring him is a strange turn of events.
Yeah. I did see Devin in the locker room. He was moving kind of well. Guys were, you know, talking about the food that they were giving him to take home. Yeah, I mean, there was nothing noticeable. Not that you can't be injured. Everything's but typically, if it's a bad ankle sprain, you're going to see a walking boot or something of that nature. We didn't see that. So it is something to keep an eye on. I'll just say that. But on the field, it'll be Nakobe Dean and Zach Bond. If I'm Matt LaFleur, that's who I'm going after. If I'm the Green Bay Packers, that's where you start, right?
Well, absolutely. And Fangio even talked about it, that the play action that the Packers use really puts some stress on the linebackers. You have to kind of read your keys to figure out, you know, are they handing the ball off? Is Jordan Love going to hand the ball off, or is he going to drop back and throw it? So you have to really be kind of, you know, on the game plan if you're a linebacker. And yeah, I would attack them as well. And if Quinion Mitchell's in the game on the outside, I'd go after him too. Let's see what the rookie has. I'd stay away from Slay. And then we'll see who plays in the slot. I mean, if Mitchell stays on the outside all night, you probably put Avonte Maddox in there, I would guess. You know, he's got a good history of playing in the slot. The problem with him is his health. And we could say
healthy, though. I say, why not use him when he's healthy? That's my thought process.
Yeah. And that could be what they do. You know, Cooper DeJean played the slot in the spring, but 3 weeks out of training camp, he missed because of the hamstring. I'm not sure. And Vicky even said that, you know, he's not where he needs to be yet. So I'd be surprised if they put him in there. Maddox makes sense if you want to keep Mitchell on the outside, or you could put Mitchell inside in the slot and put Keely Ringo out on the edge, or, you know, out on the corner, out on the outside, which I think they could do that too. So either way, this Matt LaFleur offense and this offensive coordinator, Adam Stenovich, who's been there a couple of years now, they're going to attack these perceived weak spots for the Eagles. And, you know, I think they'll find out quickly that Nakobe Dean is here to play. I mean, he had a really good summer. You hope he can come out of this healthy, and that's where Devin White comes in. He's a good insurance policy to have if something were to happen to Nakobe. But I think he'll answer some questions tonight for this defense.
Hey, what's your expectation on this Eagles offense coming in? They added Saquon Barkley. They brought in Kellen Moore. A lot of talk about how stale it was at the end of last year. What do you expect to be different tonight, or is it going to be different at all? Just a new play caller in there.
Well, we saw a lot of differences in summer, and, you know, listen, we've seen the Eagles do things in summer during camp, and then the season starts and they get away from it. But I don't think that's going to be the case tonight. Kellen Moore showed a lot of motion during the summer. He used a lot of motion, and, you know, sometimes that made it hard for the offensive line to hold their stance. I mean, we saw some pre-snap penalties with some of this motion that's going on behind them. So, you know, they're going to have to be aware of what's happening behind them. The offensive line is, so they don't, you know, get called for offsides or motion, whatever. But I think we'll see a lot of it. I think we're going to see Jalen Hurts getting the ball out of his hands quickly. I think we'll see some quick slants to Brown, Smith. I think we'll see Smith in the slot, you know, occasionally. But I think those are going to be the main things. And I think we're going to see Dallas Goedert quite a bit too. I think that, you know, he's going to be utilized over the middle of the field, and you hope that opens up the outside a little bit for some deep shots to Smith or Brown or even Jahan Dotson, depending on how much of a role he'll play. But yeah, I think we'll see some differences just in those things. Now, the blitz, are they able to pick up the blitz? I mean, that's going to be the big key. You know, the Packers are going to come after them because the Eagles didn't solve it last year. That's the big question for me is this Kellen Moore's offense, is this line going to be on the same page with the quarterback? Are they going to be able to identify some of the things that are going to be coming at them? Because that, to me, is going to be key to winning this game is how they deal with the blitz.
Yeah, I said that before you came on. That's what this whole season's about. Lane, I was talking to Lane last week. He mentioned it. He said, "Look, we know it's coming. It's coming, and they're going to keep doing it until we prove we can handle it." And I think that's what this whole season is about. Really, how good can this offense be? And they can only be where people want them to be if they can handle the blitz in acceptable fashion. That doesn't mean every time, but in an acceptable fashion. And last year, they didn't do it down the stretch, bottom line. So that to me is story number 1, 2, and 3. And then you start talking about all the other stuff. But one name I didn't hear you talk about was, let's get Jeff Kerr excited, our buddy, Saquon. Boy, the hype is ramping up. Let me give you this John Ritchie quote I saw from the former Eagles fullback. I expect if the Packers drop to zones, Saquon will strip flesh cleanly from their bones. You try to run zones, Saquon will destroy you, man. You check it down to Saquon at our -5 yard line, and he might be hitting his head on the other goalpost. John Ritchie. Boy, these people, man, they are raising the expectations.
Yeah.
To sink the poor Saquon Barkley, who have predicted Ed, SI.com/NFL/Eagles, 1,650 total yards, 8 touchdowns, which I think are pretty substantial numbers.
Yeah.
Very good player. I think he went higher than me. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I did.
You're the only one, by the way, that has gone higher than me on this entire program. I ask people that all the time. I was the standard. You beat me. I think you went to 1,700.
Yeah, I think I might have gone to 1,800. I think I had him with 11 touchdowns combined between rushing and receiving. I think, you know, when you look at Jalen Hurts, he was the one that handled it from the 1 and 2 yard line. He would just, push his way in.
By the way, why would you stop that? Jalen Hurts has 28 rushing touchdowns over the past 2 seasons. He is already, Ed, 4th in NFL history for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. I'm not going away from that.
Yeah, well, they might not, but I think they will. I think Barkley will get some of those touches, and I think Barkley will even touch the ball more inside the 5, and you hope he can score from the 4 or the 5 or the 3.
Well, he's scoring from the -5.
I know.
105 yards away.
I mean, how much of that was, is going to be lost, John, with Jason Kelce? A lot of those 28 touchdowns for Jalen did come in a tush, but I don't know how many, but
Kelce was good at it. Let's not poo-poo that. I mean,
Jason Kelce is great. Don't get me wrong, but it's got more to do with the quarterback that can squat 600 pounds than anybody else.
Kelce.
Landon Dickerson's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, and we'll see who's at right guard. Probably Becton. He's a big part of it. But Kelce did some things with the football too. And
he would
he would move the ball a little bit. Yeah. He would kind of get other teams to kind of flinch.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if Juergens is as savvy or if the NFL officials will give Juergens the benefit of the doubt.
Probably won't, by the way.
Anything like that. So, listen, if you get called for a motion penalty and you're at the 1 yard line and you're trying to push and Juergens moves the ball a little bit like Kelce did and he gets flagged, then all of a sudden you're in 3rd and, goal at the 6. So, I don't know how much we're going to see of it. And I think if the Eagles don't succeed with it early on, then they're going to get away from it.
Well, I said this when everybody was concerned the NFL was going to ban the tush push. I said, go ahead, ban it. Who cares? But that's just like the window dressing. Like, he's going to get a regular quarterback. He doesn't need the tush push.
Yeah, but how many touchdowns did he have with the tush push? I'm not saying it's going to be gone. I just wonder if it scales back a little bit. And to Ed's point, Saquon gets a couple of those touches in the red zone.
Why would you? I go back to my original point. Why would you want to take away what has been historic?
Oh no, I don't want to take it away. I just wonder if naturally it's going to go backwards a little bit with the loss of a whole.
Well, I'm a big Cam Jurgens guy, which I admit. I'm not saying he's Jason Kelsey. You're going to have one of the top 5 offensive lines. Look, I say the guy's going to get 1,650 total yards. He's a very good player, Saquon Barkley. He is not what John Ritchie just described. He is not a great player. The Eagles have a great deep red zone package because of Jalen Hurts. They're not changing that because of Saquon Barkley. That's my opinion. Maybe they do.
I think Saquon opens up the play action too. If you're inside the 5, everybody's going to expect him to get the football. And I think you could see them fake it to him and maybe roll Dallas Goedert out or whoever is out there and throw him a touchdown pass. So I think what we're going to see, Hurts' touchdown passes go up a little bit. What's his career high? 23. I think we're going to see an increase in those numbers, and I think we're going to see a decrease in his touchdowns. And whether that's because of the tush push, they're kind of not going to use that as much, or if it's just because Saquon opens up other avenues in this offense with the play action, and that will allow Hurts to kind of have an extra second to throw the ball to a wide open Goedert. I think Goddard's going to have a good season with touchdown catches, but I think Saquon just opens up the playbook even more. Just his presence with defenses having.
I agree. I think his presence is more important than the actual touching of the football.
It's tough. I think it makes it, I mean, who do you take away?
Yeah, I think it makes it eeasier for AJ and Devontae, who are your core guys on the offense. But they don't have many problems, and the problems they do have on offense are rich people problems, so to speak. How do you get Jahan Dotson involved? How do you get the football to Dallas Goedert? How do you get the football to Saquon Barkley? How does Kellen Moore get the football and make everybody happy? Those are rich people problems, so to speak. And they're real problems, though, especially if you start losing a little bit. But I think as long as they win games, nobody wants to be that guy, Ed, who complains when you're winning games because you're not touching the football.
That's right. And listen, the only way this offense gets stopped, I think, is if they beat themselves, if they have these penalties, these pre-snaps, some holdings mixed in here and there, and then have to dig themselves out of holes. I mean, I think that's the only way that this offense will be stopped. I like the Packers defense. I think they've done a nice job building it. Jair Alexander on the corner is a ball hawk, very good cornerback. I like Quay Walker, their linebacker, a Georgia kid that, a lot of these guys have played with the Eagles, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean. They know Quay Walker. They signed Xavier McKinney as a safety there as a free agent. I like him a lot. So that said, I think the Eagles, the only way they lose is if they beat themselves on offense with the penalties, turnovers. Jalen Hurts cannot turn over the football. He had 20 of them last year. Can't do that, obviously. But I think when you look at the talent on this roster, that's the only way they lose is if they beat themselves.
And a lot has been made about Jalen Hurts' health. He looks healthier in camp. He looked quicker. You saw a couple of those videos floating around social media of him, running up the field next to Dallas Goedert, super quick. I'd say there's only one quarterback in the league that's a better dual threat quarterback than Jalen, and that's Lamar Jackson. Last night, he had 16 carries for 122 rushing yards.
He was unbelievable.
Do you think Jalen Hurts is going to rush a lot this year? What's your expectations of him in the rushing game, not just at the goal line? I mean rushing overall this year and then tonight as well.
Yeah, I hope they don't use him much. I really don't. It makes me cringe when you see quarterbacks do what they're doing. And you see Lamar Jackson last night. He's going to get hurt. He's going to get
shoulders into people, man.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get out of bounds. You have to protect yourself. I mean, this is game 1 of 17. If he keeps doing that, he's not going to make it through. So I really hope that Jalen Hurts doesn't have to carry the load. Now, listen, that doesn't mean they're going to take his legs away completely. They'll and we've seen design running plays for him in camp, so we'll see some of it. But to me, it's just another way to get hurt if you're a quarterback, if you're carrying the ball 16 times like Lamar Jackson is. There's no way Jalen Hurts is going to carry the ball 16 times tonight. No. I would like to see maybe five rushes, and that includes scramble plays when a play breaks down. But again, now we talk about Saquon Barkley. There's your outlet receiver. If the play breaks down and you're on your third progression and it's Saquon Barkley in the flat, throw him the ball. Don't try to do too much with your legs this year. So I hope that we don't see Jalen Hurts, have this big role in the rushing game like he has in the past. He's good as a changeup, calling the play at the right time, a quarterback draw or a quarterback sweep to the outside. But let's not do it more than 5-6 times a game, please.
If there, is a problem with the offense, it is right guard, where it's going to be Mekhi Becton, although that's not official yet.
No.
As the Eagles try to get that competitive advantage, but it's going to be Mekhi Becton. Boy, I don't know, man. Maybe the best defensive player on the Green Bay Packers is Kenny Clark. For those who don't know, really good defensive tackle who's going to be lined up, I imagine, more often than not on Mekhi Becton. And Mekhi's a tackle, and he looks like a tackle. He was drafted number 11 overall to be a tackle. He's the biggest guard I've ever seen in my life, where it's about leverage and low man wins. And you got Kenny Clark on the other side. Is that going to be an issue?
Yeah, sure. I think that could be an issue. I think you could see some double teaming with Kenny Clark, whether he's lined up on Mekhi and then you bring Juergens over to help or the tackle over to help. But, we could see him on Juergens too. Jason Kelce struggled with these big, oversized tackles as well. I mean, he had a hard time moving them. Everybody does. So I could see him over Juergens as well. As listen, the Packers know, hey, he's making his first start at center in the NFL. Let's test him. Let's put Big Kenny over him and let him push him backwards in the pass game, because I wonder if Juergens can anchor. We saw some one-on-one drills where sometimes he did it, sometimes he didn't. So I would line him up over both those guys. Mix and match. Becton's playing guard for the first time. Juergens making his first start at center. Yeah, that could be an issue for sure if they don't figure out how to get him blocked.
Ed, the one weak spot on that Packers offense, I think, is obviously their offensive line. I don't think it's too weak, but I do think it's their weakest point. What's your expectation for the Eagles D-line, namely Bryce Huff as the big offseason signing? What do you think he's able to do tonight, and will he be able to disrupt the game in Brazil?
Well, let's hope so, because I'm not sure. You're right. I think the Packers O-line has some questions. I mean, like I alluded to earlier, they have a lot of high draft picks on that offensive line. But it's young, and so is this Eagles defensive line, obviously. So I like the matchup. But, when you put Bryce Huff out there against, I don't know who's going to be playing on the outside tackle there, Josh Myers maybe, or I'm not sure who's.
Is it Elgton Jenkins?
No, Jenkins is their best. It's Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom, I believe, are their tackles.
And I think those guys were drafted in the first, maybe round 2 or round 3. So, and not that long ago. So they're pretty young guys, and I think it's a good matchup for Huff. I mean, he should be able to impact the game as a pass rusher. Now, Jordan Love does get the ball out quick. And you're going to hear it if the Eagles have one sack or no sacks, is how quickly he got the ball out. So, you may have to get a little more creative if you're Vic Fangio to put pressure on Jordan Love, maybe disguise a few things. Maybe instead of bringing Huff all the time, drop him into coverage a couple times and, disguise where he's coming from. But he should have a big game. I mean, this is the kind of game, he's going to have harder tests ahead with some of these tackles that he's going to go against. But against the Packers, I think it is, an area you can explore and try to get him free and have him make an impact.
At Kracz, make sure you follow Ed on the X platform, which you can do in this country if you're in Brazil. Wait till you leave Brazil, and maybe you can follow Ed on X.com. Read them at SI.com/NFL/Eagles. Can read me there as well. If there's going to be one surprise from a personnel standpoint, Patrick Johnson having a bigger role. My guy, Kenny Gainwell, having a bigger role. Maybe Jahan Dotson getting thrown into the fire. I think there's a chance Cooper DeJean plays a little bit more. I think Vic might have been throwing us a curveball because he likes to blitz his slot corners on those run blitzes, and Cooper did that pretty well. If there's one surprise from a personnel standpoint, and I think already people got surprised by Devin White, although we didn't. And to a certain degree, Isaiah Rodgers. If there is one more, where is it going to be?
Well, I think Nolan Smith is someone you didn't mention, and I think he's going to kind of be the guy that I think they're going to use him a lot. I know Fangio hasn't seemed too impressed with him in the times we've talked to him. He's not really throwing flowers at Nolan Smith. So, maybe this lights a fire under Nolan Smith. I think he did that with Nakobe Dean, kind of downplayed Dean's what Dean was able to do. And, we all saw that he loved Dean, and now Dean's starting. But I think Nolan Smith to me would be a big surprise. He could surprise tonight. Again, he's very quick off the edge. He's going to test you with his speed coming around the corner. So he would be a big surprise. You mentioned Patrick Johnson. Yeah, I could see him being a surprise as the season goes on, and maybe it is tonight. But Nolan Smith is the guy that he's got to come out and he has to show what he can do. Again, against this offensive line, like Zander talked about, it can be exploited. And I think Nolan Smith needs to come out and surprise us and maybe get a sack, maybe get 2 sacks, put pressure on Jordan Love.
That would excite people.
He's got the speed. You can't win this game with bull rushing Jordan Love because he's going to get the ball out quickly. You need to have that speed around the edge to force him to step up inside where you hope Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis are ready to bring him down.
John, anything?
I thought you were jumping in.
No,
I can say, but at Kracz, as I mentioned on X.com, make sure you follow Ed there. Prediction time. Let's go. Who you picking?
Yeah, well, I mean, John and I just put up our NFL predictions. You might want to check that over at si.com. We have our division winners, our wild cards, our Super Bowl pick, our MVP, all the stuff, offensive, defensive players of the year. I think you'll see some surprises there from John, who we picked to be his defensive rookie of the year. I
like to go bold. I'm bored of Kansas City. Come on, that's easy. I'm bored with it. I like to go bold.
I like to take a few big swings too. Check that out. It's NFL predictions. But my prediction for tonight against the Packers, I think the Eagles find a way to win this game. I think I think this offense is going to come out clicking. Now, my concern is we didn't see a lot of deep shots in the preseason. We didn't see a lot of it in training camp. I don't know how many explosive plays we're going to see tonight. I think Kellen Moore kind of wants to, play it safe and get the ball out quick and take what's
the dunk, baby. Dink.
Yeah, I hate to use that term. I really hate to use it because it just sounds so boring and so basic.
Oh, people are going to be upset when they see it. If they see it.
So I thought the Eagles would hang 30 on them, but now I'm looking at the offense and I think, more maybe like 24 to 27 points. But I think this defense will play better than what maybe people think it will. And I think the Eagles find a way to win this game, something like 27-20. Kind of like last night's score, I guess. I think we could see another 27-20 game. Eagles win.
I like it, Ed Kracz. Good stuff. Our first Eagles prediction win. So good stuff, Ed Kracz. Thanks for being here today, man. Enjoy the game. Tonight we'll be following your work all weekend long. I'm sure you guys are going to put up some great articles on si.com, both you and Johnny Mac. So we'll be following along. Ed, thanks for being here today, man, on this game day Friday.
Thanks, guys. Happy Football Friday.
Thanks, Ed.
There's Ed Kracz joining us on Birds 365. Great stuff from Ed Kracz. As always, we got a full hour to go. I got a super chat, John. We'll hit after the break. We got a new member, Zach Lambert. Zach, thank you for becoming a member, man. You're officially a part of JAKIB Sports' community now, and that means you're officially entered for a Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway if he goes over 125. John, before the break, will we be giving away a Saquon Barkley jersey next week?
According to everybody, yes. Yeah. Well, according to me, no, probably not. But
I would love to start strong. I would love to give away a jersey.
I think you're going to get close, but I think you're going to fall just short. But hopefully, hey, if they got a big lead late, you got a better opportunity.
So if you want to become a member now, become a member on the channel. It does support the work you got or the content you guys are watching. So it does go a long way in helping. We are nothing without our community. So we appreciate all of you guys for being here. Zach, thank you for becoming a member, man. For anybody else who wants to become a member, you can do so by heading over to the channel page and clicking join and then becoming a member. It's $4.99 a month. So a cup of coffee a month around there, maybe an expensive cup of coffee a month. But we appreciate the support. Let's get to our next commercial break. Thought that was great stuff from Ed Kracz there. We'll come back and we got an hour to go to preview this Eagles versus Packers opening game in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Stay tuned, everybody. Hit that like button. We'll be right back.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.